What's up, guys? Eric here from MajorLeagueTrading.com, bringing you another student interview. And this time I'm going to be sitting down and talking with John on how he grew his small account to a much larger account and can now actually get a little bit more flexibility with day trades and things like that. So he also has a skeleton literally not in his closet, but right behind him, as you can see. And he's been able to do all of this, which I think is super cool, while he is in chiropractic school. And he will technically be, as I just learned, he will get his doctorate in that in about a year and 3 months. So if you're in Minnesota,
Minnesota, yeah.
Minnesota, and you need adjusted in the next like 2024, he's going to be your guy. But I'll let him take it from here, and we'll just talk some trading, talk some setups, psychology, and all those fun things. So go ahead, John.
Cool. Thanks for having me on here, Eric. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's like I said, John from Minnesota, and what's the temperature up there right now?
84 is the high today, so
Okay, not bad.
yeah, not
I
bad.
always just I see like the brutal winters that you guys get like up north, and I'm just like, for some reason, like in my head, I still picture that as like because I've never been there, so I don't really know what it's like. But
Oh,
that's
you gotta come up here sometime. It's awesome.
is it
Yeah,
nice?
both winter and summer. Like I think we have the best summers here. Um,
But
with all the lit.
it gets
Go ahead.
cold and like a lot of snow in the winter.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I think the coldest day we had like a week straight of like -20, -18
Oh,
weather.
no. I'll visit
Summers are
you.
the summers are worth it though.
I'll visit you in the summer,
Yeah,
not in the
yeah,
winter.
yeah. The summer's where it's at. We got all the lakes up here and everything, so
Nice,
it's all good.
cool. Well, I had your screenshot pulled up,
Yeah.
and so I know you're using TradeZella
Mhm.
and working on growing your account. What give me the how'd you found MLT, what you've been doing, the struggles you've had along the way. Give me the scoop.
Yeah. So I started actively like learning how to day trade, just like everyone else the last 3 years or probably the last 2 years. I started kind of when the virus hit, and everything got shut down. I'd been passively investing since, let's see, I was 22. I'm 28 now. I just had opened up a regular brokerage account and been putting stuff into the S&P 500, and then I found you back in that would have been 2020, and I started doing your morning write ups, and that was prior to you. I had taken a course on options trading, um, from a trader that's like been successful, and it was a good course. And I think the worst thing that happened to me was I started with a $2,000 account, and the worst thing that happened to me was I my first trade was like a $600 winner. Um, and people hear that and be like, "Well, yeah, that sounds pretty nice," but it was your first trade being a winner is the worst thing that could happen to you.
How was the second trade?
Yeah, it wasn't that those results were not replicated. Um, so yeah, and that was it was kind of bumpy for really the last 2 years. And I got my account all the way up. I think at the top was 34,000, and then I went all the way back down to pretty much zero, down to 1,600, and that's been the last 2 months has been working to get that back up. So
Nice. And what have you over the last 2 months? What have you been able to take that up to?
so 1,600, and today we closed at sitting at $27,094 right now. So 24 24.7K in profits
Nice.
last June, July, and then up into today in August. So yeah,
Very nice. You got to be happy
yeah,
about that.
I'm pumped, man, and like I've talked about in the Discord too. I think stuff is finally starting to click. I don't, you know, by no means am I anywhere close to like you or guys like Jake, but you start getting in a groove and stuff starts to make sense
It's good. So you grew it and then ungrew it all the way back down. Was
pretty
there
quickly. Yeah.
was there a point in that where like when you were at 34 and then like let's say you were at 25 and then you were at 20 and then you were at 15, was there a point in there where you were like, this isn't like this isn't working, what do I need to change, what do I need to do in order to stop that downfall? Like what was your thought process during that time period? I know it's like hard to like.
I think my thought process was that the next one will work out, and but I wasn't doing anything to change what was causing that snowball in the first place. It was mentally extremely frustrating and depressing, I guess, to go through that, and every trade I made was absolutely terrible. But I also had really no clue what I was doing, you know, and I was essentially either pressing buttons or uh, following random people online and trading, and really using way too much size and all that stuff. So
were,
it was
were you
not
focused
good.
were you focused on a dollar amount, like trying to make,
Absolutely, 100%,
yeah, so
100%.
it was like, oh, if this goes from 100 to 102, I can make $300 if I put on 150 shares or whatever the
Yeah,
number is, right?
yeah, yeah. And I was 100% P&L watching um, every single trade, and that's like what I was basing my exits on all the time, entries and exits, right? Like if I saw I was down $300, I'd immediately sell, right? And then I'd watch 10 minutes later and the trade works out, right? So I was constantly doing that, constantly.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's a tricky game because like, and it's hard to. It's probably one of the hardest things to explain and like teach, and even harder to go through and then understand it is like, even though you're trading to make money, if you focus on the money aspect, the only thing you're really going to end up doing is losing it.
Yeah.
So there's a big mental disconnect there in terms of like, hey, I'm used to working 8 hours a day. I'm going to get paid X amount of money. If I sit at my desk for 2 hours a day, I need to make X amount of money, or I want to make $500 today because I want to go buy this or that. And it doesn't compute the same way as a
Doesn't work
normal
like
nine to
that.
five
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah. It's way harder mentally. I mean, like it's that's like you've always preached it, and guys like Jake too talk about how the mental side of it's 99% of it. Because it is. I mean, it's emotional, or it can be emotional if watching money come in and watching money go out, and it's hard to get around that. But that's the biggest thing that you need to do, and that's the biggest change I've seen and noticed in the last 2-3 months. But it's by far the biggest part of it, the mental aspect of trading.
I agree. I mean, like you said, you're the one thinking through it. You're the one that's going to be pushing the buttons, and it literally all stems from your brain. And I think having a good strategy, and for me, obviously, I'm biased, but divergence in levels, I think makes that decision that you have to make a whole lot easier, um, and putting rules and things like that around it. So I'm curious to see what is it that what is it that you're doing from a strategy and a level standpoint, combined with those new mentals that you kind of have for yourself.
Yeah, I basically took what I was doing and went back to square one and went back to your course and because I was kind of getting analysis by paralysis, right, or paralysis by analysis rather, where I was looking at so many different um, strategies and trying to implement all of them, and I was like, this is getting way too complicated. Um, and before, like when I had the success from bringing the smaller account up to that 34, I was strictly using like supports and resistances, and that was it. I was just playing off those levels, and then somewhere along the way, I thought that adding more things was going to be better, and it turned out to be completely worse, right? Um, and so getting back to using supports and resistances and those levels, um, and I've started to implement other things like using previous days close, using previous days highs, using. I know you're not like a big pre-market levels guy, but the pre-market highs, using that as a level for intraday trades and stuff like that. But I'm basically using 100% levels now.
Very nice. Very nice. Um, so I guess I mean that answers the question. That's where do we take it from there? So I looked up. You took the course initially. Oh, Zoom closed. Um, you took the course initially in June of 2020. Um,
Sounds right.
so we're looking at roughly a little over 2 years. Did you think it would take 2 years?
I think I hoped that it wouldn't. I think in the back of my head, because when you're in a community like yours, and hopefully you're trying. And I was a part of a couple communities that were just terrible too, but um, people preach all the time. The people that know what they're doing preach all the time that this is not going to happen overnight. Um, and if you're expecting that, go put your money on the casino. Um, and so I think I was hoping it wasn't going to take that long, but now looking back, it's like okay, I think I've learned. I don't know if I would take anything back because I've learned a lot, and yeah, I didn't think it was going to take this long, but I'm okay with it looking back on it now.
What what do you think you could have done differently to speed that up or slow it down? Like, I guess part of it is learning how to trade levels was definitely advantageous. Um, but then having to go through that psychological downfall and kind of like rewrite yourself, to so to speak. Is there anything in there that you can share with somebody else that would hopefully help them from not doing that? Or do you think it's just inevitable and you have to go through it and you have to prepare for it? You try and avoid it, but it's going to happen. And not to scare anybody, but like,
Yeah, I think there's learning curves, right? But I think like taking courses and actually taking the time to learn can shorten those learning curves. I certainly would have reduced size 100%, and I heard a lot of times over and over again, like start small, start small, start small, and then you have those couple trades um, where you see these big numbers like 600, 800, 1200, and you're like, well, man, if I just would have had five more contracts on that trade, I would have made 4 grand more. Um, and so then the next trade, you size up, and it's you have no business doing that. So I would have. That's the biggest thing I would have changed was I would have started small. Um, I didn't paper trade when I started. A lot of people say, well, paper trade for the first 6 months or whatever. I don't necessarily agree with that, so I wouldn't change that, but the size definitely I would have changed.
so, which I tend to agree with the paper trading thing. I think so, twofold. I think you should paper trade to understand the platform
It's
and the
exactly my
strategies and
view.
things like that that you're going to be implementing. Like, if you're going to be putting on a butterfly, if you're going to be selling a put spread, like put it on, watch how it trades, kind of learn a little bit of how that moves. that doesn't take 6 months,
Yeah.
um, to be proficient with the platform. And at some point, even now, like every now and then, you'll still make a mistake on an order execution with the platform. And it's something that I've talked about is just platform risk. Your platform can go down, you have connectivity risk, all of these things, but which to some degree, some of those are sort of out of your control. You can pick a good broker and, not have as many issues as others. Um, but the sizing, uh, to go back to that, I think is definitely important. And I think one of the biggest things, and like, tell me if this was you, at one point, is like you see someone else make, 2,000, 3,000, $6,000 on a day, and you technically have enough capital to execute the same size that they did, but you don't quite have the same mental capital for the risk in which they took. Um, and you get a little bit of FOMO. So I think the trading space and Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff is great, um, for a lot of things. I think for that one aspect, it's really, really bad because it causes you to push and it causes you to size up when you shouldn't be sizing up, or someone just hit 3 trades in a row and now they're about to take another one and you somehow come across it and it's like, you know, oh, I should put on a little extra size here. And you start that downward spiral from there, when it doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah. And I ran into that pretty quickly, and you try to learn from it pretty quickly, but it kind of just snowballed, And um, I don't mind saying this, but I was a part of like if you know Nor, I think you're familiar with Norada. He stock hours.
Oh yeah, yeah, Nor.
Yeah, so I
Uh,
was I was in his Discord for about a year, and he's a great was a great trader, or he is a great trader. But he had way more capital than I did, and he was trading mainly like Tesla and Amazon before pre-split and Google. And when you have a small account and you're trading that, when you're trading those big names, like that can go bad pretty quick,
yeah,
you know. And and he was making a ton of money, and I was seeing that every day, and I was like, yeah, I can do that too if I just do the same thing that he's doing, and I got my butt kicked. So yeah, 100% was me,
yeah,
100%.
yeah. I mean, even just in the room between other members, like everyone's at a different point, and I think I'm gonna ask you like about your size in a minute because I'm
Mhm.
assuming you've scaled up as your account's grown over the past few months. But um, like one of my mentors, Rob, who runs the MLT stock chat in the Discord there, he's traded. I've known him since 2011,
Okay.
and he's been full time for I don't know 15, 16, 17 years now. He trades a very specific, unique thing. Only does equities, um, and got a great guy. Love him to death. And he's traded the same exact size ever since I've known him, and sometimes even smaller than like normal size. Um, and for whatever reason, he's been able to. Well, he doesn't have a ton of social media, but he doesn't get distracted by those things. And what he's done has been consistently working for him for many, many years now. Um, and he told me, like, him and I have talked about it, and I'm like Rob, like, why don't you size up? Like, if you're putting on $200 risk on a trade, why don't you try putting on $300 risk on a trade? And he's like I've done it. He's like, and mentally, it messes me up every single time. He's like, so I found my sweet spot, of the risk tolerance that I'm comfortable with. Um, and I think that's something that gets overlooked is like you're gonna reach it, I'm gonna reach it. Um, everyone's gonna reach it at a certain point. Everyone's tolerance is a little bit different. or it could be a lot bit different. Like someone could be completely comfortable losing $100,000 and they have $1 million account. Another person may only want to lose $2,000 even though they have $1 million account because that sets them, they lose more than that, it sets them on tilt or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Um, so regardless of your account size, like you're gonna reach that point where it's like that you get that if you take a loss and it's too big, you get that pit like in your stomach. You like it's like hollow and like if you've ever taken a loss and you're watching this video, like you know what I'm talking about. Um, and that's when you know you've gone too big.
Yeah.
And, like,
Yep. 100%.
unfortunately, the only way to find that out is to actually do it, which
Yeah.
requires you to have a decent sized loss. But yeah, so I say all that to say, how has your sizing been, and what have you predominantly been trading um, over those last few months to get where you are?
Yeah. And I mentioned it in the chat too. I think I've only really traded June and July. I really only traded about 5 tickers, um, and it's mainly been SPX, um, mainly been ES, and I have been sizing up. But what I've gotten really comfortable with is buying further out contracts, um, and buying and paying, right, paying the higher amount for that time, and that's really helped me look on the bigger time frames and actually let the trade work in my favor. Because when I play like weeklies, I get super stressed because I'm like, if this doesn't play out, how I want it to play out or how it's supposed to play out, like I got 3 4 days and that's it, right? So I immediately get stressed with that, and then I can't size up in that situation because that's when I get that pit in my stomach if I take a loss. Um, and that so that and then I'm playing way too small for my liking as well. And so I've been really just buying further out contracts when I size up. I haven't been consistently sizing up. Like if I have a couple like two K days, I don't immediately size up the next day, right? Um, I've been picking where I size up, and those times when I've sized up, they've been a month plus out contracts, and that's helped with um, the stress, and it's helped with my risk tolerance a little bit too.
So, are you giving those trades more room, or you're still taking the same like kind of smaller time frame entries into bigger moves, but just taking the further duration?
I'm giving them more time. I'm giving them more room to move because
Okay.
I'm basing those longer term plays I've mentioned. I think the last month I've mentioned December SPX puts a bunch, and I've played those a bunch because when I'm looking at on that, I'm looking at the daily chart, right? I'm looking at the weekly chart, and I'm basing those plays off that. So I'm okay with seeing down $500 if I'm down 500 one day. Um, I'm okay with seeing that because I have until December, and I'm basing that buy off of those longer time frames. So
So, which I know you've talked about that. How many, if you have the numbers, like what's your longs to shorts right now? Because over the last 2 months, we've had a pretty decent rally,
yeah,
and I know you've played puts on like some really nice down moves in that rally. What's that? What's that kind of look like?
it's been so my short. Let's see, because I've traded like Tesla some, and those have been more intraday stuff and quick, like in and out scalping to the upside. Other than that, it's mainly been puts that I've been playing. Um, because that's like I don't know, and I think you kind of feel the same way. Like that's what it's been looking like, right? I mean, just the past 2 weeks has really only been when we've seen this like reversal. Um, that you can be semi comfortable with going long, but um, other than that, yeah, it's just been mainly puts. I'm trying to figure out on.
That's actually
Go
pretty
ahead.
impressive that you've predominantly traded puts over the last, like, you've been super patient with your entries then.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
like yeah, very strict. And like today was a good example where I literally sat watching that 4,200 level, and I had my cursor over the buy button probably 10 different times, and it just didn't feel right. It didn't look quite right, and I took it away, and I should have just shut off my screens and walked away. But yeah, I've been super picky with it.
so I think that's you brought up an interesting point though. I think that's a good thing is you sat and watched for hours today and didn't put those on because you didn't get the confirmation, you didn't get whatever it was. And the reason you sat there all day long was you didn't want to miss the down move if it was going to happen. And most traders um, at that point would have been putting the position on because they didn't want to miss the move as opposed to sitting there and watching and waiting for their entry because they didn't want to miss the move. Right. So there's like a growing, there's like a stepping stone there of when you can sit all day and not take your trade because it doesn't set up just right. And you still have FOMO because you don't want to miss the move. It's just a different level of FOMO. And it's also, I guess, a discipline control over your own self now.
Yeah, and I just looked at it now. I actually had 12 canceled orders today because I put something on, I put a limit order on, and I was like, nah, I don't want to do it. Well, yeah, 12 canceled orders. That's crazy. But yeah, that's like, and it was that mental battle. It was a mental battle to do with myself, and um, that's I a year ago that would not have I would have put it on and not even thought twice about it and been pissed when I lost money. But um, now it's like having the mental wins like that. Like today, it's feels better than making $2,000-3,000.
Yeah, because there's longevity in
Yeah,
that, and as you've seen, like that compounds, right? Like there isn't there isn't like that one like you'll have one trade that kind of makes you mentally like there's always going to be one trade that like you remember to a T, like the whole thing how it happened. um but there's never going to be one trade that like truly defines your account like over the course of a decade. Like it just you're going to have some big trades, but it isn't going to be like I hit this one trade and I can retire type of situation. Like it's compound after compound, $400 winner, $700 winner, $200 loss is ultimately what it ends up adding up to. Um, and I think too many people miss how that actually looks on paper and what it
yeah,
can add up to.
and that's what's crazy. And I can sending these screenshots and stuff. Like I'm looking at July right now on TradeZilla, and it's like $100, $264, $248, 2 uh, 2000, 1.79K, and then back to 284, 294. So it's like, it's just consistently hitting like the smaller winners. And then, you'll have a great trade that makes you a bigger chunk of money.
Yeah.
And my losers were smaller than my winners. And that's key. And people want to see the big numbers, and it's great to see the big numbers, but you can have a 90% win rate, and that 10% can knock out all of your winnings. So it's
Yeah.
smaller consistent winners, I think, in my opinion. And yeah, it's not even an opinion, it's pretty much fact. Like that's how you're gonna live in this game, and that's how you're gonna be around 10 years from now still trading. So
Yeah. I mean, the market's not going anywhere.
No.
It's been around for a couple hundred years at this point, essentially. I mean, I guess you could argue a market has been around since we started having something to trade and barter with.
Different type of market, but yeah, that's
Yeah,
100% right.
it hasn't been as easy as the click of a button that we have it now,
Yeah.
but um, is that also easier at the same time? Like,
Well, I
you
think
could,
that's when we get into the mental side of things, right? Like,
I mean, you could argue that it's not right because
yeah,
you can place a like you can place a trade from the toilet on your phone. Like you can place a trade while you're driving. Legal disclaimer, don't trade and drive,
yeah,
obviously.
don't for
If you're
safety
gonna
and
do
your accounts, don't
it,
trade while you're driving.
yeah, it's not a good idea.
No,
Um, but yeah, I mean, you could make the argument that that's not um, the, an advantage, really, because if you really go back, and I'm speaking personally here, if I go back and look at trades that I've taken from the phone, whether I'm at the gym or I'm at lunch or wherever, those don't add up to be beneficial for me at the end of the day.
no.
Um, so I have a steadfast rule that I just don't trade from the phone. Um, I'll break it every couple months and I'll learn like that was stupid. Like I shouldn't have done that. Even still, but I've done it for a while. But yeah, you could argue
Well,
that
that's
that's not a good thing.
no, yeah, and that's like I'll, when we say in the chat like, hey, yeah, I'm done for the day, I'm logging off. I mean, how many times do guys still message in there, and it's like, dude, I thought you said you were going like 2 hours ago. Um, and so I mean, it's hard. And then on the phone too, like I look at my phone all the time. I open up the TD Ameritrade app, and it's like I try to reduce it. Um, but I think probably 9 out of 10 trades that I've made on my phone have not gone my way, just like you. And it's like,
Yeah,
dude, just put your phone down, put your computer away, and don't look at it. And that's a battle. But like noticing it is another big win, right? I mean, notice what you're doing and changing it. But
yeah. You got to make the decision, and you got to stay disciplined in order to do that as well, which
yeah,
is sometimes the difficult part. Um, and I want to talk about that for just a second, and then we'll kind of wrap this up. Um, when it comes to discipline, like what have you done just in terms of like your everyday life? So like I know right now you're like working on going through finals, and I'm assuming that schedule is probably pretty like rigid with what it is you're doing and kind of mentally taxing, I would assume. Um, knowing all the different things you got to know to not snap somebody's neck. Um,
yeah.
and what what have you added, or has that helped you, do you think, given the last 2 months, how kind of your schedules looked, um, and does that transfer over, to your trading discipline, do you think?
Yeah, I've always like my upbringing. I was always in sports, and so I always had like 6 a.m. practices, and so I've always been on a pretty rigid schedule, and I still do that to this day with working out and doing that stuff. And then obviously school and being in a doctorate program has made that even more rigid. Um, so in regards to trading, I'm it's pretty much I'm done by when classes start, whether that be 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. I rarely trade after like noon. Um, and so like in that regard, it's pretty strict between like if I'm going to do analysis and stuff, it's going to be in the morning before the markets open, half an hour, 45 minutes maybe before the market opens. And then I'm done. I have my trades planned. And if none of them work out by 9:30 or 10, then I'm done. And I've stuck with that the past 3 months. And that's helped out a ton. Partially, and part of it is because I do have a schedule where I need to be in class at a certain time. Have I traded in class a couple times? Yes, um, uh, but yeah, partially because I do have class, and partially because it's helped mentally as far as like being more disciplined and not making dumb mistakes.
Fair enough. I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
I have my perfect morning routine that I like strive for. Um, and like you said, you've placed a couple trades while you're in class. Like there is that there is that element to us still being human that we have to be able to recognize at times to kind of rein it in, and not let it get out of control. Um, but when I can achieve my perfect morning routine, I feel better. I know I perform better, but I got a 3-year old, I got a wife, like I got other things going on that sometimes don't always allow for that. And I do think you have to be able to understand that and have some flexibility to what it is you're going to do when those situations arise. Having some plans for that, and like you said, you're going to break those rules every now and then, and being steadfast on not letting it get out of control, um, is super super important. So
Yeah. And I like last week I tripped up on that, and I can remember it was last Wednesday. I didn't wake up at my normal time. I was stressed. And you look at like I made 13 trades that day where
ooh.
my average has been like two or three. And I don't know what happened, but I like looking back on Wednesday night because I was like, I gotta like review what was going on. Um, I took like, let's see, I played Microsoft. I was up. That was right away in the morning. I was up like $400, and I should have just shut my computer and didn't. And then I lost a grand on Microsoft. And then is where the fun stuff started, where I got into this like revenge trading, right? And this whole time mentally I'm like, stop doing it, like stop doing it.
Did
Um,
you
and I
did you
ended
tell
up
yourself one more trade?
that's exactly what I was doing. Like like this stuff happens. And I ended the day up 800, but like looking back, it's like that's the worst. That was the worst $800 I've ever made in my trading career because I knew exactly what was happening. Um, and I ignored it. And in the past, what would happen is that Wednesday would have turned into a similar day on Friday and then the following Monday. And now it's like I took that Thursday off. I didn't trade, and I wouldn't have done that in the past. And so I knew I was off that morning, Wednesday morning. I was not in my regular routine, and that showed in my discipline with trading. And so it's that stuff's all connected. And there's days where if you don't feel mentally ready to trade, like you shouldn't. You should be as far away from your computer as possible.
Yeah, go work on the honeydew list. Or
Exactly. And
ended up,
that list is long all the time,
yeah,
right?
it is never ending somehow. It ceases to amaze me. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's so like okay, you ended up $800. In a way, it kind of cemented a bad habit where the next time you go on tilt, like, oh, last time I finished up $800, I'm only down 2 grand right now. Like I'll be able to bring it all the way back to even.
Yeah.
And then you don't.
Yeah.
And you end up down $2,800 as opposed to being up. Um, and those are damaging days. Like there's just no other way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing I'm still working on, right? Is that part of it. And I've had one of those days in the past 2 months now. And so like and that was I was probably averaging 7, 8, or 9 of those days per month back when I was first starting. And so to me, I look back at that and I'm like, okay, like we're getting somewhere. Like that's good. I'm proud of that. But at the same time, like that can't happen,
Yeah,
So
very nice. Well, I like it. It's good stuff. Went a little over on time, but no no worries on that. It was good content. And
cool.
I mean, I hope that it helps, you know, other newer traders that are listening in. And if you made it to this part in the video, then uh, you're committed to learning more of what this takes. And it's not always about looking at the charts and, reading a book and trying to figure out the next strategy and things like that. Um, I think these interview styles are sometimes some of the most beneficial because you see like, oh, he makes mistakes. Like, I've been there, I've done that one. Like, damn, that sounds familiar type of situation. Um, and you get just a different take on how people react and handle those situations, and can adapt and try those, to yourself. Um, so I like it. I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for
Um,
having me, man.
yeah, we'll have to do this when you hit a next big milestone.
Yeah, dude. I don't even know. I haven't even set that expectation yet. I don't want to. We're just gonna day by day, man. Day by day.
Yeah, don't set a like dollar amount
No.
that you got to strive for, but whenever you do hit one, just let me know.
Yeah, I'll hit you up for sure. The chat it'll be let known in the chat that I hit one.
Very nice, very nice. Well, I'll put your socials down below if you want me to. If
Yeah, I mean I don't have like
what
yeah,
if it,
I have an Instagram.
all
I don't
right.
use it a ton. It's you want me to give that to you right now?
Yeah, you can drop it. You can drop it in Discord. I'll add it below the description here in the video. So in case anybody wants to reach out with any questions or um anything like that. So
Cool. Cool. Yeah, I'll get that to you.
awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, and I look forward to January of 2024 when I can get an adjustment from you.
Come by Minnesota up in the summertime. Make sure you come in the summertime.
July of 2024.
There you go. There you
I,
go.
January is gonna be too cold for me. I'll pass on that one. But congrats on the success, man. And it sounds like you're doing all the right things. And honestly, just keep doing it. Like, if it's working, don't change it.
Thanks,
And
man. I appreciate it, and it's you get the credit too, man, because you're learning from you and guys like you and Jake and being in the community. Like you put together an amazing community, and it means a ton. So thank you very much.
I appreciate that. But remember, you're pushing the buttons.
That's you
At
got it.
the end of the day, it's all on you.
Yep.
And that guy behind you.
And the skeleton, yeah, can't leave him out. He's watching every day.
Did you give him a name?
Yeah, Mr. Lebowski.
Okay.
If you've ever seen like The Big Lebowski,
Uh,
that
it's been a
movie,
it's been
it's
a
been a
very
minute.
long time. It's been a very long time.
Yeah,
I had a different childhood. Like I didn't, that's another
that's all right.
top
That's for another video.
that's a topic for another time. Yeah, for sure. So, all right, man. Sounds good.
Thanks, Eric.
Yep. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, click the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe if you haven't, and leave a comment below. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this type of interview style videos, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.